Theory of mind is the ability to understand that other people have their own thoughts, feelings, perspectives, and intentions, which may differ from one's own. It's essential for interpreting social cues, understanding motivations, and recognizing how others might perceive and respond to situations. This skill plays a central role in both giving and receiving reassurance because interpreting intent when someone offers reassurance, theory of mind helps the individual recognize the intent behind the words, understanding that the person is genuinely trying to provide comfort or alleviate concerns. Recognizing emotional needs, theory of mind allows an individual to assess their emotional needs and see why reassurance might help, especially in navigating complex social emotions like anxiety or doubt. Contextualizing responses, knowing that others have different views and intentions, helps a person put words of reassurance in context, allowing them to trust that the person offering support sees their unique situation. Accepting vulnerability, receiving reassurance can involve accepting another person's empathy and trust, which theory of mind helps facilitate by recognizing that people offer comfort because they care. Without a fully developed theory of mind, it may be harder to recognize, trust, or accept reassurance, as the individual may not as readily interpret others' intentions as supportive. In autism, the structural and functional differences in brain wiring significantly impact how emotions are processed, often making fear responses more intense and prolonged. This intensity is tied to several interrelated factors: semantic pruning, right brain emotional processing, interhemispheric communication, and the heightened impact of stress on compensatory mechanisms. 1. Semantic pruning and emotional processing. Limited pruning of connections. In typical development, semantic pruning is a process where unnecessary neural connections are refined, particularly in early life, creating more efficient pathways for processing and responding to stimuli. In autism, pruning is often less robust, meaning more connections remain active. While this heightened connectivity can lead to rich sensory and perceptual experiences, it also creates many overlapping paths for emotional responses, particularly for emotions like fear, making them more intense and harder to regulate. Overwhelming stimuli. When a person has numerous neural pathways remaining open, it becomes challenging to filter out unnecessary information, leading to sensory and emotional overload. In a moment of fear, this heightened connectivity amplifies the experience, making it feel more vivid, intense, and enduring. 2. Right brain dominance in emotional processing. Right hemisphere and emotional intensity. In autism, there is often a dominance in right hemisphere processing for emotions, which typically handles more raw, unfiltered emotional responses. The right hemisphere has fewer inhibitory controls over emotions, meaning it's more prone to rapid, intense reactions that can feel difficult to regulate. Fear, in particular, is processed in a way that can become overwhelming, as the right brain's lack of filtering means the fear response is quick to activate and slow to subside. Thin interhemispheric boundary. Autistic brains often have a unique interhemispheric structure, with a thin line separating the left and right hemispheres, which typically work together to moderate emotional experiences. This thin boundary means that the right hemisphere's intense emotional reactions are less regulated by the logical.
All right, this is fucking ass. How about America? Here we go. So right here, we're talking about the center lining between your left brain and your right brain. Okay, so there's a lining I'm going to show you a 3D model so you can see. And buy one. Let's see here. And we're going to look at the corpus callosum. This is actually your, this is a huge issue because see this portion, this is a lining that separates the two sides of the brain. So we're going to make this full screen. And so you have your left side, right side. And then there's that lining right between there. And the level of thickness is going to determine how well your two hemispheres of your brain can speak to each other. Okay, so the thinner it is, the harder it is for you to go. Let's say for your brain to go to the logical side and then back to the emotional side, like, and let's say a non-autistic brain with its complete corpus callosum. Now, trauma also can reduce that as well, that lining, and thin it out. So when we're not able, not only do you have a plethora of short connections, but that communicating to that logical side is not happening either. It's just not happening. So the more upset you're getting, literally nothing is getting communicated. You could try to speak logic all day long, but the logic side can't hear because it's not getting those connections or that signal like it's supposed to, and the signal goes back and forth with nice, good speed, like good internet speed, but it's not happening. It's like modem, like before modem, like when there was still delivering mail. This is what we're seeing here. So that's why it's really important that you understand that it's not anything that you're doing. It's just simply that one side of the brain is not able to talk to the other side because of that. And so you're going to have to make some alterations in order to get it to communicate to the other side. And we'll go ahead and let him continue.
Language-centered processing of the left hemisphere, leading to more unmoderated emotional experiences that can quickly spiral without the moderating effect of logical reasoning from the left brain. 3.
All right, so here we are again. If you are in right brain mode, for instance, there's no talking to you in a way that is, let's say, logical that you're going to actually comprehend and be able to understand, because at that moment in time, that emotional side is listening, not the logical reasoning side. But if you're trying to logically reason with an emotional brain, it's not going to understand. There's going to be a miscommunication, and you're only going to get more of that emotion, not less than. Okay, and that's really important to remember.
Stress response and compensatory mechanisms. Resource reallocation under stress. Autistic brains, when under stress, tend to redirect cognitive resources toward managing the immediate stressor, leaving fewer resources available for other cognitive tasks or compensatory mechanisms. Typically, autistic individuals develop various compensatory strategies like relying on routines, systemizing environments, or visual aids to help manage daily life. But when stress levels rise, these strategies become harder to maintain because cognitive resources are pulled toward managing the overwhelming stress and sensory load instead.
And this is, I think, what is so hard for people to understand is that it is a balance. It is like if you want to look like an audio equalizer, the more stress you're under, the less you are able to use that IQ, your cognitive processing, the way you're supposed to, okay? Because it's too busy managing that stress that you're dealing with. And what's and if those if you're let's say if that keeps happening, right? And you're not able to ever get to you back to your baseline, and then we're going to start getting to our meltdown, and then we're burnt out, we're done, because we've used up every possible bit of energy that we had in order to, let's say, survive that particular situation or whatever that was occurring that put us in that high stress environment.
Impacts of emotional dysregulation on abilities, because so much mental energy is reallocated toward managing intense, unregulated emotions under stress, there's a reduced capacity for managing other cognitive tasks. This can lead to reduced executive function, difficulty with memory recall, and even a diminished ability to interpret social cues or communicate clearly. In this state, even simple tasks can feel insurmountable, as the brain is overwhelmed by the combined load of intense emotions and depleted compensatory abilities. 4. The feedback loop of intense emotions and reduced abilities, fear amplification and reduced coping. In autism, when fear intensifies, the usual mechanisms for calming oneself, like logic or routines, may fail because the brain is now overloaded with emotional processing demands. This creates a feedback loop. The fear intensifies because it can't be talked down by logic, which in turn heightens stress and further diminishes the brain's ability to compensate. This loop can quickly escalate, creating what feels like an unmanageable cascade of emotions, persistent emotional residue. Due to the prolonged intensity of these emotional experiences, fear and stress can linger much longer in autistic individuals than in neurotypicals. Even after a fearful experience has passed, the autistic brain may take longer to reset, as the residual stress and emotional activation can continue to impact functioning, further intensifying feelings of vulnerability and reinforcing the initial fear. In essence, the autistic brain's distinct neural structure makes fear more intense and harder to regulate due to both the high connectivity and reduced pruning, as well as the right hemisphere's dominance and thin boundaries separating hemispheric functions. When stress rises, these factors work together to not only make fear feel deeply overwhelming, but also to temporarily disable the brain's usual compensatory strategies. This creates a cycle where fear persists, capacities are diminished, and each subsequent stressor compounds the difficulty of returning to a state of calm and function. Now, this
All right, I'm going to have to interrupt again because, again, when we're not just talking about overwhelming to the point where, let's say, like a neurotypical thinks of overwhelming, we're talking about a fear like no other. It is almost like I want to say not biological. It's not even the right word. It's like it's back in the your original DNA of what fear is, because you don't know what's going on. Everything is chaos. Nothing is going how it's supposed to be, and now it just keeps going, building and building and building and building, and the more it builds, the more reduced you are at reasoning that all this extra stuff that your brain is doing is just, it's almost like a lot of hogwash, because the right side of the brain really loves that negative thinking. It loves that self-loathing. It loves to tell you how that you're terrible, that you're just not the right person. It's going to tell you everything. Okay. And I actually found a fix for this, because I encountered it often enough that I would experiment different ways on how to reduce this, because I wanted to work. I love to work. I like to get on my computer, and I would when I would get into these, I would call it's past the meltdown. It's literally like I'm not even like I'm frozen. It feels like I'm frozen in time. I can't do anything. I can't think. I can't eat. I can't. There's nothing because my brain literally just is is in a state of what it should do, where it should go. It the distress becomes now physical. Now my stomach's hurting. Now like we're holding the whole shebang, and I hate that way that feels so much that I would perform experiments on myself all the time. And I would try different things to try to resolve it. Things that, you know, like my chameleons, they would work. My chickens would work. But as stress increases, those things don't work as well. Yes, they are good, and I pick them specifically because they force me to get up and go outside and be outside, which being outside is always something to help reduce uh, when you are feeling like the world's coming to an end, and then also to their responsibility because I know this creature is depending on me, so I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna go. That's my motivation. That's you got to have something to get you to get up and go. And I have kids, but my kids are gonna be that's a different. It's a responsibility that's going to happen regardless. But it has to be something like different in a sense that it belongs to you. It's something very special. Not that my kids are not special. It's a little bit of a like, yeah, it's an autistic thing. We have animals, we have like a connection, and I feel like animals really help with this because they need you to get up. You can't just lay there, right? And you need an animal that requires something from you too. You can't just have with cats, especially you can leave them alone forever. That's not gonna work. It has to be a creature. Uh, that's one thing I like about my chickens because they just bug the shit out of me. Really, they never really ever stop bugging me. So you go outside, they're bugging, and that bugging is enough to get me to get me going. So I realized I wasn't even in the pitch there as I was talking, but we'll go back and finish listening to my friend here, and hopefully it sounds better this time.
This is my fix for the previous information. 1. Engaging adrenaline and switching to fight mode. Adrenaline activation. When you intentionally trigger anger, you activate the body's fight or flight response, releasing adrenaline. This hormone surges through your body, increasing heart rate, energy levels, and alertness, and heightening focus. Adrenaline also briefly overrides some emotional processing, pushing you toward immediate action and decision-making, which is why it can shift your focus away from a dysregulated or anxious state. Shifting hemispheric dominance. Anger can naturally prompt a left brain shift because it involves more analytical and linear thinking processes.
I'm gonna stop this again because it does not work if it's your negative anger. Negative anger, like road rage, whatever, that's not going to change your mindset because we're still negatively angry. Okay. Any type of anger that has negativity associated to it will not get you where you need to go. Okay. So instead, you're going to choose something that you're passionate about that is a positive anger. And I think there is such thing as a positive anger where you want to enact change or you want to do something about it. You want to help somebody else. And when you see something where something is unjust or morally just wrong, and you're just, gosh, I hate this so much. I want to fix this. I want to make it better for somebody else. And then you go through that process. Let me see if I can try to do something. Even if you won't go online and practice learning how to build WordPress or something, anything that is requiring your brain to work on something that it's curious about will get you where you need to go once that adrenaline subsides. Because the adrenaline is a very short half-life. You're not gonna have it for all day. It's literally like an hour or two. So you got to be ready to. You got to know where you're gonna go and what you're gonna do once that has subsided. And like for me, going online and let's say doing my computer stuff, usually researching things of that nature will help me redirect. So I usually get pissed off about something about autism usually, and that usually will then now I'm already just completely redirected. And guess what? I'm no longer right brained anymore. And now you can understand how the neurodivergentbrain.org was built, because the more I did that, the better I felt, because I was so overwhelmed and stimulated all the time, and I was not feeling good. And I was going through a lot of stages where I just kept hitting like meltdown, where I literally I would sleep forever. I get really, really tired when I'm under a lot of stress. It's almost like I looked it up. I think narcolepsy too. It's something possible that autism can have. I get tired. I just want to sleep, 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 because I'm so exhausted from my brain trying to figure something out, and it doesn't have the resources that it needs from the left side. So think about it. If you're trying to write a report for your school and you gotta go to the library, but the library is on the other side of your, it's the other side of the brain, right? But you can't get there because you don't have a car, or the car that you have, or you just have a bike. So you really got to ride your bike for a really long, long time to get there. So by the time you get there, you're just, you know, fizzled out, burnt out, and just more depressed, because trust me, I've been there. And this is where we come to the part where we're going, okay, we're going to take that adrenaline and we're going to use it. We're going to use it to our benefit so that we don't feel that yuck anymore, or it's reduced dramatically. And now we're starting to feel more relaxed and calm, because that's the goal, right? We don't want to stay in that overstimulated meltdown state because it's physically uncomfortable. We want to get out of there, right? It's like, oh, I'm out. I gotta go. And it's been 46 years I lived in the right brain, and I can tell you it's terrible, and it's literally a nightmare constantly, because it's just always there, the tension. Like you have this huge backpack on your shoulders, and you never can seem to get it to go away. You just like you're in, and it's overwhelming to the extent that, again, this is why you see these suicide rates so incredibly high, is because the inability to manage this, because when you're on the right side of the brain, it loves to ruminate on negative things. It wants to say just the most worst things about you to yourself, because you're going to punish yourself before you punish anybody else. I know that because I do that. And we're going to go into this self-loathing loop, which is terrible in its first place, because by the end, you're just like, I'm just the worst person I've ever existed. No, 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 no. You're not a slave to this. You can, we can fix, you can fix it. It's just, it takes some practice. And it's really just, again, find something that you love, but also gives you passion and purpose. And I have found if you have passion and purpose, boy, that will motivate you to do anything, even get your ass out of bed. Because trust me, I've been there many a times. And so when we get angry about our passion and purpose, now we are going to, guess what we're going to do? We're gonna manually get ourselves over to the other side, because the other side has to do that. Okay, anger's over there. That's the department in charge of anger, is the left side of the brain. So therefore, it's gonna take over now. Yes, baby. Let me finish. And then, guess what? Now we're gonna start. You're gonna start feeling your body relax. You're gonna start feeling yourself calm down. But this again, you have to have your stuff ready to go and know what your plan's going to be when this happens, so that you're not sitting in this state for days and days and days and days and days on time. You do not need that in your life. That is, you're not eating, you're not taking care of yourself, you're not sleeping. These are things that you got to do. And the only way you're going to do that is get yourself into that logical reasoning and giving yourself purpose and a sense of what purpose will give you meaning. You want to have a meaning of life. You want a meaning to get up, a meaning to serve, and that duty in itself will help you get there. But that also that purpose has to really pull a passion that makes you so frustrated that that adrenaline starts pumping out, right? Positive. I feel like the more positive energy, then we're going to try to stay in that more positive state. Because if you're going to try to use negative, right, a negative adrenaline from doing negative things, you're going to continue to be in a negative state. That's not the goal. We don't want to stay in a negative state. We want it out of there. That store needs to close. Okay, so we're gonna go back and we're gonna finish this one so that you can hear.
The left brain is known for managing tasks related to order, problem solving, and logic. So, when adrenaline is engaged alongside an intentionally chosen focus, it primes the brain for logical reasoning, helping reduce the grip of emotional dysregulation, which is largely processed in the right hemisphere. 2. Redirecting energy from emotion to cognition. Switching to problem-solving tasks. Once adrenaline is engaged and you feel the initial surge of anger, immediately diving into a favorite, thought-intensive task that requires problem-solving keeps the brain engaged in a focused way.
Here we go. Now, I find I like, let's see, messing with models, messing with my computer, things that are hard, that that are kind of challenging. Models especially, terrible for that for me. Because of my motor skills. Um, do, go do go do dishes. Anything that is a task where your hands and you're busy. Because the more busy your hands are, or knitting, you can try knitting something. It doesn't. This isn't about becoming an expert. You could if you wanted to, but this is about teaching yourself something, and that's what I have done. That has been my saving grace. This is how come I'm standing here right here with you right now, is because teaching myself something new somehow made me feel better in the end, because I would get so distracted by either the frustration of learning something new, which is normally what is happening. So now I'm completely switched over to, now I got to figure out how to do this, instead of the other side, which is the emotional nightmare for which we don't want to be in. We don't want that. Okay, so again, this is going to be any task that you choose that you are interested in, and I really encourage you to things to learn a new skill, because skills are, like, to me, like money. They're priceless. The more skills you have, I feel like the more worth I have. I mean, it's literally my own self dopamine giving thing. I'm learning skills for myself because it makes me happy when I can uh complete it or get better at it. Like War Thunder, is something I started doing because I was so stressed this summer. And in the beginning, you can see I'm terrible at it. I'm still not that good, but I was terrible at doing it. But it was so complicated for me to figure out how to do this, because I'm so stubborn about, I want to figure it out. I want to learn. I don't like losing. I kept practicing, but then also gave myself routine, because I needed some routine. Routine is a God's gift. So how can I give myself routine from a video game? Well, shit. I'm gonna stream it. Okay, so I'm gonna put a responsibility on myself to stream it. So now I have to have a routine that I have to do every day in order to help keep myself feel safe, okay? Because if I'm living in a chaotic environment, well, I have to, sometimes you yourself are going to have to create your own safety. And you can do this by little things that the things that you have. And I know a lot of us love to game at the same time every day. I know a lot of you don't. You're like, I don't want anybody watching me gaming. I didn't want anybody watching me gaming either. And I can tell you, having people watch me was the hardest thing I have ever done in my entire life, as far as teach myself to be watched, because that gave me an incredible amount of anxiety. Because well, you're not that you're judging me, but more that you're watching me, and I am not. I have. I'm not sure why it bothered me or even made me feel uncomfortable. But so much of my life is done in private because I'm not a social person, and here I'm putting myself out there to a social world that really hasn't been so kind in my life. So that's kind of scary. Yeah, and then of course I naturally start oversharing because that's just how I am, and, that fear of rejection comes in. However, what you also get out of that deal is you get, and which has been the beautiful, is a support network of people who also love the same thing that you do, because you'll notice that you'll get more support from individuals who have the same interests, neurotypical or autistic. Everybody likes War Thunder just like everybody likes World of Warcraft, right? Or some of us don't. It is we have a mutual liking or dislike for something, and that in itself creates that I'm not alone. I have somebody. Here we go. We're doing something to change that mentality so that we feel better. Okay. We don't want to get stuck into a spot where we want to, let's say, I hate to say the word, you know what I want to say. This, unfortunately, that, our lifespan is what, 37, 38. There's a reason for that. And we don't want that anymore. We want to change that. So we're going to use some tools to help us move this along so that you are more motivated to say, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to go on there and do it, because it helps me. Because you got to love yourself enough to take care of yourself, and understanding that this is how your brain works. So when your brain does it again, you go, I know, no, I know what's happening. I understand that this is my current circumstance. What can I do to change it? Well, here it is. This is how you do it. And sometimes even like going on Facebook and reading some Facebook forums about autism, usually you can get me all fired up real fast. And then I'm making over WordPress, doing a blog, because I'm mad about it. These are the things that help me feel, hey, I'm passionate about it, angry enough, the adrenaline pumps up, right? I get mad. And I just redirect it into something that I enjoy, which is helping my community. Because hey, shit, if I figure this out, I'm not gonna hold it in my pocket. I want to share it with you. But I'm gonna let you finish. I love this narrator so much. He's really good. Hold on one second.
Since the left hemisphere thrives on structured analytical tasks, this shift provides a pathway to stability by giving the brain an alternative focus and a productive outlet for adrenaline-fueled energy. Creating a feedback loop for calm, as you engage with a structured task, it diverts cognitive resources from the intense emotion and sensory processing in the right hemisphere to logical and sequential processing in the left. This new feedback loop can help maintain a sense of calm as the brain now invests energy in a stable, ordered task, stabilizing emotional fluctuations. 3. Temporary regulation of the autonomic nervous system. Short-term reprieve from overload. During stress, the autonomic nervous system often becomes overstimulated, leading to dysregulation. Adrenaline briefly reconfigures your nervous system, focusing on an immediate task rather than on ruminating emotions. By the time adrenaline fades, you've redirected your attention to logical problem solving, making the nervous system less likely to fall back into dysregulation as quickly. Moving toward parasympathetic activation, after adrenaline is engaged and you've shifted your attention to a thought-intensive task, your body may begin to transition into a parasympathetic state. Although the adrenaline effect is short-lived, focusing on a task requiring problem-solving activates the prefrontal cortex, which helps reduce amygdala activation. As the amygdala calms down, it signals to the body that the threat is over, gradually helping shift to a calmer, more logical state. 4. The role of engagement and flow in sustaining regulation. Adrenaline's role in flow state. Tasks that you enjoy and that require intense focus can pull you into a flow state, a highly focused mental state, where time seems to disappear and you're absorbed in the activity. Because adrenaline kicks off this state, transitioning to a flow-inducing task helps harness the remaining energy in a productive, emotionally neutral way. Building a mental bridge to calm as you sustain the focused task, the brain builds new associations between this emotional reset and logical problem solving. Each time you repeat this method, your brain strengthens the pathway, making it easier to move from dysregulation to logical focus the next time. 5. Recovery and rebalancing after adrenaline drops. Natural exhaustion and reset. After the adrenaline wears off, your body and mind are likely to feel drained. This is a sign that the autonomic nervous system has cycled through the activation phase and is ready to rest. While this tiredness might feel physically taxing, it actually supports emotional stability by encouraging rest and recovery. The brain is then more capable of returning to its baseline state without the original emotional overwhelm. Strengthening resilience. Over time, using this strategy reinforces resilience, teaching the brain and body how to pivot from emotional intensity toward calm focus. It conditions your system to handle future stress by providing a repeatable pathway out of emotional overload, which can improve emotional resilience. In essence, this approach leverages adrenaline as a natural reset, redirecting cognitive resources from emotional overload to logical focus, and helps sustain this shift long enough for the nervous system to begin self-regulating again. It's a tactical way of giving your brain the nudge it needs to access calm, logical thinking despite the intensity of stress. And while adrenaline is short-lived, the immediate shift into focused problem-solving tasks gives you an anchoring mechanism to ride out the initial intensity and find stability.
That, my friends, is my solution. I don't know if you've ever watched me break down on my streams. I'm going through a divorce and I have a lot of stress, and I do not handle stress well at all. In fact, the more stress that I handle, or the more stress I'm under, the more autism symptoms you see. You're going to see me. I do a lot more ticking. I'm like pacing. In my communication skills are just, they just start, or it's like a plane crash over and over again. And I found that this works the best and the fastest to get me where I want to back work, because where I want to be is back online, working on making sure that, you know what I'm doing. It makes me happy. And anything that you do that makes you happy, whether, and I want to encourage you too, is to not be afraid to learn new things that maybe you thought you couldn't learn, and try it and see if you can. And you'd be surprised. There are going to be some, and really practice and see where are your talents, because you really don't know until you try. And you really don't know until you actually see if you can or cannot. So, and there's no harm in, oh, I'm not very good at that. Like, for example, War Thunder is a great example of that. I'm terrible at tanks because of my visual. I just can't see nothing and I get killed immediately. But if I do planes, at least I can see who's coming and I do better. And you practice. You've got to try things and not be afraid to fail, because failing doesn't mean that you're a terrible person. Failing just means that, or not uh, being the best at it just means, well, maybe that's just not something you're good at. There's nothing wrong with not being good at everything. I mean, nobody's good at I mean, I'm sure there's somebody that's good at everything. I don't know who they are, but if they are, that's great. But we all have the capability to learn and practice. It just, for us as being autistic specifically, it takes more practice. And there's nothing wrong with more practice. There's nothing wrong with practicing. If that practicing over and over again gets you out of feeling like the worst you've ever felt in your whole entire life, because honestly, I can tell you, it does feel like the world is literally coming to an end. Wouldn't it really be better if you could just, wouldn't it be nicer, I say, if you could had an option to change that so you're not feeling like that anymore? And don't be afraid to have these experiments on your, to form experiments on yourself, and do it properly. Learn about how scientific research is, and do multiple practices, multiple alterations of the same scenario to see if you get the same result. Because just one time is really not gonna. I'm sorry, no sign, no. I don't think any journal is gonna go, well, that one time that worked is definitely gonna be something that we're gonna implement. I'm pretty sure they're gonna say no to that. So you got to practice over and over again. But every one of us is different. We're not all the same, and we don't all like the same things, and we all don't have the same levels of ability to withstand being uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable when you're overstimulated is incredibly hard to survive for a lot of us, and we give up and we just can't do it any longer because it is so taxing on our bodies. Let's try to change that and say, you know what? I know this is what my brain is. I got in my head. It is what it is. So why not use what I got and make the best of it, and see if I can't turn around to see if I can't use that particular thing to do this particular thing. Uh, and learning, this is part of your learning, and that's, again, you go to the neurodivergentbrain.org. I want you to really take the time to learn about yourself, learn about you, because every autistic person is different. No one is the same. We're all different. And learn what you are, how you are. And I'm gonna have a little suggestion just at the end too. If you've ever done that DNA, I know they have that big old thing where, I don't know, they had an issue where they're bored, quit. That's not the point here. If you've ever had that done where you had your DNA, for your genetics, there's places that will give you your genetic DNA, and you might be really surprised, like I was, what your genetic DNA is in comparison, let's say, to the test that you took. Because with my particular disabilities, dyslexia and all that blah 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 stuff like that, I'm a terrible test taker. So that And then too, when I take IQ tests, I start overthinking, like, why are they asking me this dumbass question? And the next thing you know, my time has run out. Okay, this doesn't help your score when you're questioning that kind of stuff. And, this is about you feeling better at the end of the day so that you have a better quality of life, so that you enjoy your life a little bit more. They know it's tough. I know how hard it is to be autistic. I know how hard it is for people not to validate you and not to care about you. And but you do have value, and you can use some creative tools to get yourself where you need to be so that you can make your dreams come true, because dreams do come true if you work hard enough on them. That was emotional. I don't know why that was emotional. I think it was because I really believe that neurodivergent people have these incredible talents and they just don't realize how incredible our brains are. And we get stuck in this thing where we don't like ourselves, or we're mad at ourselves because we made a mistake, or we should have done better. And we really need to be more loving to ourselves, because that we deserve that, and you deserve that, and I have to remind myself that I deserve that. So try it out. Again, this is positive anger. I want you guys to find a purpose. Whatever your purpose is, whatever you want to change, recycling. You can, don't be thinking you can't save the world just because somebody says you can't. You can do whatever you want. You just gotta want to do it. And I know all of you have the capability of doing what you want and having your dreams come true. But I'm not going to tell you that this is easy, because it is not easy, and it's gonna hurt a lot, and people are not gonna like you wanting to have boundaries, and they're not gonna like you saying no, and they're not gonna like it when you decide to go out on your own, and it's gonna be really hard for you. But I want you to have a system that will help you keep going, even when you feel like you can't keep going, because you deserve to keep going, and you deserve to be here, and you have value, and uh, you got to have your own method, your own tools, and maybe you can modify this and make it better. And if you make, and please tell me, if you can make it even cooler than this, or I don't know, maybe it's not cool, I don't know, but if I want to share it so that we can, as a community, help each other live better quality of life, because that is really the most important thing, is you enjoying your day and you making the most of your life. So, and this is Christina, and I redid this again. Hopefully there's no echo, so we're gonna check and make sure. Until next time, make sure you subscribe. I do appreciate it.